What's going on, guys? It's Dan here from the Wolfpack, bringing you a bit of a different video today. I thought I'd bring you a video basically on the fact that Vitor Pereira coming into this season, the way it was and everything. Thought it'd be a deserved video, really, going over just how this guy has potentially saved Wolves' season. Just going back into the past, looking at what went wrong, and looking at the state of the club when he came in, and what Vitor has done really to change things, change a sinking ship, basically. So I thought we'd go over a bunch of it together. And yeah, if you like this video, do us a massive, massive favour. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're new, hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Just a bit of an apology. We haven't be able to bring you a preview for the Ipswich game tomorrow, and I couldn't get a review out in time for the West Ham win. But I know you guys know by now that it is difficult at the moment. We're going to try our best next season to do better, but yeah, there's been a lot going on so in our personal lives, and it's just been really difficult, really. But we're doing our best. I thought this video coming out now could give us a little bit of a little something to tie us over, basically, in the lack of those videos. But yeah, so what was the club like when Vitor joined? I don't think we think about this enough, really. So this was the state of Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Premier League. 16 games in. This is where Vitor took over. We had played 16 games. We'd lost 11 and only won 2 games. We'd lost 11 of 16. We had a minus 16 goal difference as well. And things weren't looking good. Ipswich were doing really well at the time. Leicester City were doing really well at the time. And you know what? We weren't miles away from Southampton either, really. It was looking very bleak. And thankfully, Fosun did the right thing and got Vitor in. But let's have a look at what went wrong for Wolves. So a lot of the times, we started off with some hard fixtures, Arsenal, Chelsea, big defeats there. We get a nice draw against Forest, all things considered, but then it's just red. Lots of losses. Nice lucky draw against Brighton. Decent enough draw against Palace, but there's nothing really right in home up until Wolves win Southampton 2-0. And this very odd game where we beat Fulham convincingly away. But there was a lot of games that really, for me, Vitor should have took over there and then. And this one, for me, is the one. 5th of October, coming off a defeat against Liverpool. You think, it's not the worst thing in the world, We're probably going to lose to, let's be honest, the people that are going to win the Premier League this season. But this game against Brentford, for me, was embarrassing. It was a game in which Brentford, were doing very well, but they weren't flying enough to put 5 past us. We weren't bad enough, in my opinion, defensively, to be able to be shipped this much constantly. And the disappointing thing for me was there was just no balance in the team. We were scoring goals, sure, 5-3 looks great, doesn't it, on paper? But every time we scored 1, they'd score 2, and it just wasn't great. Following on from a couple more defeats there, like we just spoke about. But then it really started to get sour, where we lose to Everton, who hadn't won all season, or at least not many games. We lose to West Ham, who was struggling with Lopetegui. We then lose to Ipswich, and this was basically the last straw, really, for Gary O'Neill. This is where Vitor took over, comes in, gets us a win against a relegation rival in Leicester. We then get a really good win against Man United. Looks like he's got Cunha flying. We get a good draw against Tottenham. We lose against Nottingham Forest, but let's be honest, so was everyone at the time. Get a nice cup win. And we do go on to get defeated by some great teams, Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, great teams. Get a great result against Villa. Start going on a bit of a cup run after beating Blackburn. We lose narrowly to Liverpool, the league leaders. We beat Bournemouth, which is a great result. We lose to Fulham in a bit of annoying state, and there's a few results here, but this is where it starts to turn around. We get a lovely draw against Everton, who were flying under Moyes. Southampton, we managed to get a great win against them away, which is fantastic. And this last game against West Ham, obviously tomorrow is a big game against Ipswich. But at this point in the season, I honestly think that Vitor's doing a fantastic job. He's took us from essentially the brink of relegation to getting points here and there. But how has he done it? What did he change that was different? Well, he did a few different things. First of all, he got rid of some bad eggs. I know that Craig Dawson was a great player when he came in under Lopetegui, amazing guy, but started to become a little bit of a sour grape under Gary O'Neill, and it got considerably worse and worse. And Vitor just didn't stand for it, just said, you know what, if you don't want to be here, we'll move you on. He didn't go in the window. He's still training with the team, but not actually with the team. He still trains at Compton. And then, obviously, the whole Lamina situation was obviously a complete and utter disaster. Was club captain at the time. And he's, stripped of captaincy just before Vitor comes in. And just really just deals with the situation quite harmlessly, really. I don't think we gave him enough credit on how he actually deals with situations. He de-escalates these absolutely ridiculous situations that a lot of managers wouldn't be able to deal with. Credit to Gary O'Neill with what he did with the club, when he first came in and everything. But he genuinely lost the dressing room, didn't he? And another thing I think was really disappointing with Gary O'Neill as well is that he really couldn't get a hang on players when they really, really started to boil over. We saw it, countless amounts of times where players just had to be taken and dragged off a football pitch in embarrassing senses, really. And we've still seen it since, but I just feel like it's dealt with better. So this is another reason why I think Vitor's saved us. He's given us a little bit of lease of life, and he's obviously saw that there's some bad eggs in the club, and there probably is still some bad eggs in the club, but what he does really well is he deals with it. He doesn't let them have the limelight completely, It's not the Cunha show, for example. Just giving one example of a player that seems to, capture all the headlines and everything. And I just think Vitor just sees through all the bullshit, really, which is really, really nice. And I just think like he deals with the press really well. He's really, really liked with the fans. He's really got us on board, feeling like he's a bit of one of us, like going into the Fox at Shipley, having pints with fans and everything, and just giving us a bit of a lift, really. I don't think we've really had this sort of connection to a manager since Nuno. I know that obviously we had the Gary O'Neill song, and he was doing bits for us when he first came in. We were beating the likes of Man City. We were flying in the FA Cup. We had a load of injuries and everything that obviously made us suffer there. But I just think that even then, I don't think that Gary O'Neill was sold with Wolves. I don't think he always looked like his head would turn if a bigger club came in. With Vitor Pereira, I'm not so sure. I think because of the fact he's always wanted the Premier League, he's always wanted a Premier League team. Maybe a bigger Premier League team would make his head turn, but I just feel like he's more accepted at the club because, he really wants to be at the club, and he gets it. He gets what it means to be a Premier League manager. He gets what it means to be fans of a Premier League side, who let's be honest, demand a lot, but we should be demanding a lot. We're in the top flight of English football. We've been in the top flight for English football for a while, and it's only really our owners that have made us think otherwise. Results aside and players sold aside and everything, We're still a fantastic club on paper. We just had the worst season under Fosun. But I do think Vitor can change things. We saw another thing as well, where he's given players a chance. He's given players chances, like Doc in the back three. Shouldn't have worked. Shouldn't have worked at all. But it kind of made sense because Gary O'Neill was playing him as a wing back and playing Semedo as that centre back, and obviously he gets beat in the air constantly. Doc's much better in the air. He's much better at remaining in his position. If he needs to get forward for opportunities, he's clever enough to figure out how to get back. Totti, the same, seems to be so much better under Vitor. Seems to have a lot more, knowledge of the game, knowledge of where his positioning is. It just seems to be happier as well. I mean, the beard helps. Let's be honest. we've all seen Totti's beard, and seems to give him that extra edge. But like, jokes aside, he has genuinely changed Totti into a very assertive centre back that will be quite tricky to lose his place to the likes of Mascara or whatever next season. Bellegarde, I think this is the big one for me. Bellegarde under every manager we've ever had since he's come into the team has never shone. He's had glimpses where he's looked okay, some decent goals here and there, but nothing to the likes of what Vitor has managed to bring out of him. And I think this is genuinely because, this is another point, he plays players in their roles. So it seems like an absolute, bit of genius, doesn't it? You know what I mean? A bit of genius, playing the players in your team where they actually want to play. When you play Football Manager and you put a player in the wrong position and you can see that all of their attributes go down. Well, that's a lot like real life, okay? If you play a player where they're not supposed to be, they're not going to be as good. You might get the odd little, tweak of a system which makes players play well in those areas, like I said just about Doc. But very, very rarely are you going to see the likes of a Bellegarde play well on a wing when he's primarily a midfielder. And he saw that. Vitor has obviously seen that in him. He's obviously had conversations with Bellegarde. Just seems to be a lot more understanding of the players, letting them have that freedom, but also seeing that it needs to be, they need to play where they need to play. So it's a really, really good thing. Another thing as well, Andre. This guy, honestly, under Gary O'Neill, I was honestly considering him being one of the worst signings for us because he consistently gave the ball away, consistently out of position, and made João Gomez's life an absolute nightmare. Even when you played a midfield three, he was out of position. But I know what Vitor's done. He's just said to him, right, listen, you cover every blade of grass that João isn't in. You two literally hunt like dogs and make the tackles. If someone's going in for a tackle, the other guy sticks back and stays in the space to cover it if the tackle doesn't go through or the press doesn't go through. And it seems another really easy fix, but it literally plays into our favour. Both Andre and João Gomez were played in the exact same position under Gary O'Neill. They were played in the exact same position, and he probably put Lamina or Boubacar Traore in the middle, or and sort of pigeonholed them in some sort of system. It doesn't work. You only need two of them, and one of them needs to get forward, one of them needs to go back, and you just change back and forth as the game goes. When they get leggy, you substitute them off. But yeah, there's another massive player, and I'm probably forgetting some as well. Obviously, Cunha has been cooking under him as well, but Cunha's been cooking all season, so I don't really think that there's that much really going on there. And credit where it's due, I think the person that really turned Cunha around was probably Gary O'Neill, to be honest. The one thing that Gary O'Neill, and I will say this, even on a Vitor video, Gary O'Neill's really good with players if their things are going well. If things are going well in your team, he's a phenomenal guy to have around because he makes confident players play very well, like Hwang Yi-chan, for example. But when your team isn't playing very well and you're losing every game or you're shipping goals for fun, he's not the guy that you want in the foxhole. And Vitor, for me, under pressure, it doesn't matter. Okay, we lose a few games. All right, it's fine. I'm confident. He says it over and over again in the press conferences, even when all of the Wolves fans were just thinking we're going down, myself included. I'm not going to put myself out of the conversation there. I honestly thought we were going down. Vitor didn't think that at all. I have confidence in the players. And he also has confidence in the likes of Strand Larsen and everything. And now he's scoring goals for fun. And the confidence he has, even when players aren't playing well, is a very, very good trait to have in a team that's struggling. And this is another reason why I think that he saved our season. So there's loads of different reasons there. The one thing that we don't talk about very often is that for once in ever, really, the owners seem to back this guy. They seem to back his ideas, and they seem to back his system, and they seem to back his vision, because they give him the likes of Agba, who, okay, we've had some, Munetsi still, yeah, he's having a few games here and there where he's showing things, but he's not like pulling up trees like Agba, which I actually think he genuinely could pull up a tree, because he's an absolute Hulk beast. But getting off topic a little bit there, but the likes of Agbadu, that was something that obviously he's seen the weakness. He's seen that we needed a centre-back, and he's put his foot down and said, look, we're getting a centre-back, regardless of the fact that we couldn't get, the players that they wanted at the time, your Danzos and etc. He was like, no, I'm not giving up. We're keeping going. Worked tirelessly, and obviously he's not the only one. Matt Hobbs and the scouting network and all the all the team that are around that help these things happen. They're obviously not out of the conversation as well. But Vitor is very, very pivotal in getting these players interested in our club as well. And I think because he's been about, because he's essentially a bit of a journeyman until he's gone into the Premier League, because he's always wanted the Premier League. He's not wanted, the other leagues that he's been in. So that's why he gets classed as a journeyman, because he's only ever wanted one place. We've given him that place, and that's why you see the passion, which brings me to my last point. Passion. This guy has so much passion. This guy and his team behind him as well, his coaching team as well, definitely have it. They just ooze passion in that. I mean, the dressing room must be a completely different situation, because Gary O'Neill, bless him, was too busy playing Angry Birds on his iPad. Do you know what I mean? Like, jokes aside, like, it just didn't look like he'd get a team by the scruff of the neck and say, look, you can still do this. And he probably could. He probably was very good in the dressing room, like I just said earlier, and I alluded to. He was probably very good when the going wasn't tough. But when the going was tough, he was gone or going. And eventually he did go, And the irony is, Gary O'Neill was dropped after the Ipswich defeat at home, where we lost right at the end of the game. And I genuinely nearly gave it up there and then. But Vitor Pereira comes in, and, you see a different Wolves. He comes in and he says, you know what? I know what I need to see. and I'm going to get it. And he has. He has. He has changed the way this team plays. They press from the front, but they're not stupid about it. They're wary. Okay, and that could come across a little bit boring at first when you watch Wolves now than you did under Gary O'Neill. But they're not stupid. They're not all just running for the sake of running. You know, even the likes of Ait-Nouri, who was guilty constantly of being out of position, Vitor has drilled it into him now. Look, I will let you go free range, but you have to make sure that someone behind you is covering you. And you see that constantly with Agbadou and Totti. So I could talk constantly about how he's changed us, you know, in a sense of how we play. But the main one is really, he's just calmed us down. He's made us a resolute team that's hard to break down. You know, we were getting to a point where every corner was essentially a penalty. That was completely shut out. Do you know what I mean? That's shut out now. Touch wood, you know, it won't happen again for the rest of the season. But like I was just alluding to and got sort of off track there, the irony is Ipswich is our next game. And Ipswich was when Gary O'Neill left. That's why I was really looking forward to making this video, because we need to get this manager embedded in this club. Fosun need to back this manager, not just because he's tactically astute, but because he's passionate and he knows what he wants and he can get things out of players. And he's not afraid to tell players where the door is as well. Gary O'Neill was. Gary O'Neill was absolutely terrified of upsetting people. He was bringing coffees in left, right and centre. Who wants a Starbucks? And Lamine is probably just looking at him like, mate, I don't even want to be here. Why do I want a Starbucks? Do you know what I mean? Now, there is still obviously a massive problem at this club. Before I end this video, there is still a massive problem at this club, and that is our ownership. But I've heard from the grapevine, things are starting to change. They're not going down this, you know, horrible path of consistently trying to rely on inferior replacements after selling assets. They are starting to turn the screw slightly in a different angle and a different way. And we'll just see what happens. But this video is all about how Vitor has potentially saved our season. And I hope you enjoyed it, guys. And if you did, give me a big like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And I shall see you on the next one in a bit.